here in the birdhouse. Matt English should be back Thursday for us, and we're going to be ready to rock and roll. Now, I will be going over the quarterbacks, as I said, today. Tomorrow, we'll dig into the tight ends. Wednesday, the wide receivers, and Thursday morning, as our final pre-draft info, we'll dive into the final rankings of this amazing 2025 rookie running back class, of course. But today, we're getting into the quarterbacks, and let's bring up the mock draft board for you guys here to join along. So right up top, as I said, today we're going to generally be focusing on the quarterbacks and the quarterbacks' values, the hit rates, historically how they've done depending on what round they were drafted in the NFL draft, as well as what round they were drafted in our rookie drafts. So let's get started here. We'll get Ashton Jeanty off the board, as he is basically the consensus 101 in just about any format, super flex or one quarterback. As of now, he's being projected as a top 10 pick, and there's not much to really talk about there for Jeanty. Now, if you're in a rebuild and don't feel you need a running back, I'd tread very lightly on that path, because Jeanty is such a high-end, a borderline generational talent that even in a rebuild, these are the kind of players that you're usually looking to trade up for. So, do you want to do that circle where you don't draft him now and you get a couple picks later, and then you're just ending up using those couple picks to trade for Ashton Jeanty 2 years from now? So that's one thing to think about. Now, if you're trying to completely crash and get the 101 next year, then I can understand it a little bit more, but just think of those things when you're dealing the 101. If you're dealing it, especially if you're dealing it away in a rebuild. Okay. Second off the board, we're going to go Marion Hampton. Again here, Hampton is expected high draft capital, likely in the first round, but maybe not. Maybe the early second round is where Hampton will end up going. We don't know for sure, obviously. It'll depend where Jeanty goes, then where Hampton will be drafted afterwards. Now, I'm using my Patreon rankings here. If you haven't checked it out, check out the patreon.com/birdhouse dynasty show. You can catch my rookie Superflex rankings. I'll bring those up real quick here for you to see what I'm talking about. We'll unshare this and then bring this up for you. Yes, right here in my Patreon, there are my rookie Superflex rankings, and we can slide down the board here and see that we have Ashton Jeanty all alone in tier 1. Then we have a bigger tier here, tier 2, where Omarion Hampton is my number 2 and will stay there. Now, I have this giant tier from basically picks 2 through 13, and now it'll be picks 14, because I had this little tier hidden down here, and that had the ever polarizing 3 players of Travis Hunter, Jalen Milroe, and Bashul Tootin, running back from Virginia Tech. And what we're going to do today is we're going to maneuver around here for you. Let me do this. Go ahead and edit. And here we go. Got that old video up there with Caleb Johnson. And so what we're going to do today is show you what I'm talking about when I'm maneuvering some players around. We're going to start by getting Travis Hunter out of there. If you watched my video last Thursday where I had John Bauer and Shane Manila from DD Fantasy on, I went ahead and I grabbed Travis Hunter at the 105, just ahead of Tet McMillan. And so I am going to move Travis Hunter right up here to number 3. Now, this is based off of the latest and greatest news that we hear, and that is that Cleveland may very well be taking, they're very likely to be taking Travis Hunter at the 102 pick of the actual NFL draft. And so I am following that because their GM has made it ever apparent that he is drafting him as a wide receiver. And as a wide receiver, I've had Tet McMillan ranked number 2 or 3 all off season, but now you have to make adjustments in Dynasty when they present themselves. And Travis Hunter, to me, this is for me, he simply provides a higher ceiling than Tet McMillan. Tet may be the more solid, safer pick, and in that case, you may want to go with Tet. But for me, I'm talking ceiling here, and Travis Hunter, to me, seems to have more of the Malik Neighbors ball skills in him to where he could demand more targets. He could get more screen passes, get those PPR points up, whereas Tet McMillan's more of your traditional X-wide receiver, your Drake London, Mike Evans style. That doesn't mean that they won't get a bunch of targets, even early on, right out of the gate. I mean, he profiles very similar to Mike Evans, and we all know, as did Drake London, they both had absolute trash for their first couple of seasons in the NFL at quarterback. And so Tet is one of those guys that, in my opinion, is quarterback proof. Now, Travis Hunter, he will be dependent on how Cleveland decides to use him. Of course, we're not sure if we have Joe Flacco this year slinging the rock. They're going to be throwing enough that I'm not worried. Could they trade up back into the first round and grab his teammate, Shedeur Sanders? There's lots of rumors out there, and I don't want to get into all those rumors. Right now, what I'm focusing on is that Travis Hunter is the more talented, higher ceiling player than Tet McMillan. Now, because I did that, I need to slide Quinshon Judkins in here. And now my rankings, they don't necessarily just reflect how I necessarily feel these guys are talent-wise. I also reflect how the community's perception of these players is. And we all know that Quinshon Judkins' community perception has gone down a little bit over the last few weeks. So in that regard, I'm going to move him down here to number 7, overtake Luther Burden, who's also been punished a little bit by the community. And so we slide in Judkins here. And then we're going to slide Luther Burden. I'm going to keep Tyler Warren there in the 8th slot. Now, these two tiers, tier 2 and 3, you could combine them, honestly, and make one just giant mega tier, in my opinion. And that's where I'm going to get at here, because I'm going to make it 14 picks in this tier. And we're going to slide Luther Burden III right in here. I still like Luther Burden. I like Igbuka even more now. And that's because I think he's just more, how do I put it? He has the potential to be an absolute PPR monster, and I think that his floor is better than Burden's. We'll put it that way. All right, Missouri. There we go. And so we still have Judkins and Warren there in tier 3, or tier 2. Tier 3, then the top end of that tier is Caleb Johnson. He could move up easily into tier 2 there. Then Shedeur Sanders, and this is where I'm going to make a little flip-flop. I prefer Jackson Dart right now, and that's simply based off of a few things, most notably the community's perception, because I am just simply not an NFL scout, and even the NFL scouts aren't great at predicting quarterbacks, and so I am moving Sanders down here. Sanders is just not somebody I trust, and obviously if he ends up being picked 2nd or 3rd because of a move up, then we'll make our adjustments. But based off of what I'm seeing and how I feel, and the off season has gone here, and just general perception, Jackson Dart seems like a better leader. He's more into the craft of trying to get himself to be better. Shedeur Sanders already thinks he's great. And I mean, comparatively speaking, he's absolutely in the top 0.1% of all quarterbacks, of all people, right? But he, in regards to this class, you have Cam Ward, who obviously looks like the 101 here, and then now it's this battle between Dart and Shedeur Sanders, and I just feel like if my franchise were to take, if we didn't, like Tampa, if we didn't have Baker Mayfield, I'd feel a lot better about taking Jackson Dart right now than Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur might sell a bunch of jerseys, but within the community, think about it midway through next season, right? If Shedeur starts off cold, well, you already had half your league mates opposed to taking Shedeur Sanders. Right now, Jackson Dart, nobody's opposed to taking Jackson Dart. Everybody's liking what Jackson Dart has shown this offseason. There's no reason not to take Jackson Dart. His upside's great. Now, maybe getting him at the 110 isn't as great a value as you might have gotten, say, a month or two ago. But I don't think, like, we're not taking him in the top 5 is my point, okay? This is similar. It's shaping up similar to the Joe Burrow class, where you had Joe Burrow and then Tua and Justin Herbert, and Herbert was kind of falling now, and then you had Tua as just this stable kind of quarterback. Jackson Dart reminds me of Justin Herbert a little bit, but they're kind of flipped because Jackson Dart's stability and community perception is pretty good right now, whereas Justin Herbert's just wasn't during the draft season. And obviously, whoever still bought into him, it paid off very nicely. But Shedeur is just that pocket passer who's very accurate, similar to Tua. Now, Shedeur, yes, I said he was a pocket passer. He likes to scramble a little bit more than maybe he should, or maybe than he'll be able to in the NFL is the way I should put it. But yeah, between the two, I'm just leaning Jackson Dart right now. If we go over to Draft Buzz, we can see that they still have Shedeur ranked number 2. So you can see right here. There we go. But man, the community perception is just flipped, I think. And so I'm going Jackson Dart. And so what that means is in our mock draft, we'll get back to now. Here we go. In our mock draft, we're going to take Travis Hunter here at the 103. And then Tet McMillan at the 104. And then we'll go Cam Ward at the 105. Now, I'm going to talk about this in particular because many feel like if they need a quarterback, they got to draft Cam Ward in like with pick 2 or 3, right? But the problem there lies in the ceiling of Cam Ward. Cam Ward is not an elite. He doesn't profile as an elite level quarterback. Your Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, those types of quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson. Cam Ward is a gunslinger, yes, but he doesn't run like those guys. And I just don't see the ceiling. Like if I need a quarterback and I've got a pick in the top 5 picks of this NFL draft, I'm looking to try and flip it for a veteran quarterback, honestly, because just because Cam Ward right now is perceived as the top quarterback in this upcoming class or upcoming draft on Thursday, that doesn't mean that he's going to be the best quarterback of the class. Look at historically now, the last couple of seasons, just Bryce Young went 101. CJ Stroud ended up being better. And it's still that way, even with Stroud not performing that well last year. The community still obviously has CJ Stroud valued at a higher ranking. If you go on Keep Trade, any ranking you go on, you're going to see CJ Stroud ranked ahead of Bryce Young, right? Bryce Young struggled year one. He got benched year two, came back strong. So now his perception has gotten better, but it's still not near where CJ Stroud is, right? And those guys, I mean, Bryce Young was the consensus 101 that year. Nobody was going to they weren't looking at CJ Stroud going number one. Now, CJ Stroud was projected to go higher than, say, Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart are projected to go right now. So that's why I don't think that I would be taking Shedeur or Jackson Dart ahead of Cam Ward. But it also means that in such a running back heavy class, and you have two stud wide receivers in it as well, I'm going to be taking those better hit rates ahead of Cam Ward. All right. Unless I've got 3 picks in the top 5, and that way I want to make sure I land a quarterback, and then I'm going to be able to get either McMillan or Hunter, and that's how I want to play it. You know, if I have picks 1, 3, and 5, okay, then maybe I'm taking Ward at 3 just to make sure I get the quarterback, and then I get either receiver at pick 5. But otherwise, all things being equal, if it's just one player and I'm just trying to take the top value, I am taking Hunter or McMillan over Cam Ward. And that's just where I'm at. I'm not as excited over Cam Ward as I was with like some of the quarterbacks in last year's class. Like if Cam Ward were to be lined up, if you put the 2024 class together with the 2025 class, Cam Ward would be somewhere around where, but you know, Bo Nix was, put it that way. Bo Nix, JJ McCarthy-ish, in that range. Okay, so if you flip that into our Keep Trade Cut rankings, and I'm not going to bring those up because I've already flipped through 4 different pages here on you. But basically, Cam Ward is somewhere in between there. And you start with Bo Nix, Brock Purdy, Trevor Lawrence, Dak Prescott, all of those guys in that range. And you go on down to like the JJ McCarthy-ish range. All of those guys are one giant tier to me. Some of the guys are look a little better, sure, like Brock Purdy with his upcoming contract extension. Maybe those are a little safer, but in the long run, like they're generally your quarterback too, right? All those guys are going to produce pretty similar. Yes, a couple of them are going to produce better in this 2025 season, but we don't know which ones those are. Is it going to be Trevor Lawrence or is it going to be JJ McCarthy? Will it be one of these rookies? We don't know that. I'm not good at projecting stats. I'm not a genius at those, so that's why I stick to tiers and try to go with those tiers. And if I can get the guys at the bottom of the tier plus something. And so that's in general, that's good process, just because that's why we put them in a tier, right? They're all pretty much equal. Now you go above Bo Nix, or if you say you want Bo Nix ahead of them, that's fine. I get it. He's young. He can run. So yeah, if you want Bo Nix ahead of Brock Purdy and bump him up a tier, put him like with where Baker is probably at the bottom, like around pick quarterback 9. That ranking ish, definitely not elite, but that second tier, I guess I'd say, of quarterbacks where you have Kyler, Baker, those guys. Yeah, I can understand that, putting Bo Nix up ahead of those guys. But Cam Ward to me is not on that level. He's just going to be a guy that's very serviceable, as long as he, comes in and gets it right away. But I'm not paying a top 4 pick, not when you've got 2 smash running backs here in Genty and Omarion Hampton, and then Travis Hunter and Tet McMillan at wide receiver. You're not selling me on it. Does it mean that I will end up with less Cam Ward shares? Maybe. So be it. Fine. I've got no problem taking Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders later on in the first if I have to trade back and pick up something extra. I'm all for that. that's not a problem from my perspective. So next up, then we're going to hit up the running backs again, and we're going to go with both Ohio State running backs here. We're not going to dwell on the running backs today. But Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, they're back-to-back for me still. I know that Judkins' perception has slid a little with some of the analytics coming out that he's not that great of a receiver. His missed forced tackle rate isn't awesome, and Travion Henderson's, on the other hand, is. But you have that dynamic with those two. They played together. They were getting different kinds of touches. Travion Henderson was getting the third down looks, the not all the goal line looks, but inside the 20. Generally speaking, those are the higher scoring rates. It's kind of like Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, right? Or your Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, I would say, is more of a better comp, these two, because I don't think that Travion Henderson is quite on the level of Jahmyr Gibbs, but Quinshon Judkins very similar to Najee Harris, and so that's where I'm going to stick with those. Again, don't want to dwell too much on the running backs today. Lord knows, we've talked about them plenty this offseason, and that's not going to be the main topic of this episode. So next up, we're going to go with Tyler Warren. Warren, to me, is just a better playmaker and versatile tight end than Colston Loveland. I don't hate Colston Loveland, don't get me wrong. If Loveland goes to the Chargers and Warren goes to the Colts, the community perception is going to bury Tyler Warren and pump up Colston Loveland to the point where Loveland will be probably drafted higher than Tyler Warren. But just keep in mind, I don't need to play it here for you, but if you watched the reactions of people when Brock Bowers got picked by the Raiders last season, that's all I need to say, because we all hated it, myself included. I did not love it, but by process, I still picked him with the 108 if I had him. Now, I would have been fine taking that 109 and Brian Thomas, but I picked Brock Bowers. He was a top 8 player. Again, I went to talent and process, and I still stuck to that. I didn't jump up and grab Xavier Worthy just because he ran a 4.2 something 40, okay? That's why we do these exercises, so that you understand what players need to be getting picked in certain positions. And you can't just drop them out of a tier because of a landing spot. Landing spot's important, but it's not the only thing. All right. So next up, we're getting to the back half of that mega tier that I talked about from picks 2 through 14. And we're going to, let me go check my Patreon to make sure. Yes, we're going to grab Caleb Johnson here. Now, Caleb Johnson could easily get bumped up into the tier. Like I want to remind you again of that class, that Joe Burrow class. Remember, Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the 5th ranked running back of that class going into the draft, right? But we all remember what happened now. Jonathan Taylor was the top rated, athletically speaking, running back. You had DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers and J.K. Dobbins as well in that class. But Clyde Edwards-Helaire was the lone back that got taken in the first round. Now, it may have been pick 32, but because he got that first round draft capital, everybody pumped him up all the way ahead of Jonathan Taylor. Now, I shouldn't say everybody, but many pumped him up too high, and we all paid for it, whoever did. Jonathan Taylor obviously has had a better career now. And that could happen if somebody decides that they love Caleb Johnson so much. Now, I don't want to say the Raiders are going to take Caleb Johnson at pick 6, because that sounds absolutely ridiculous right now. But let's say the Raiders decide to go wide receiver at pick 6. And then, the Saints don't take Genty. The Cowboys don't take Genty. But the Cowboys love Caleb Johnson, and they pick him at pick 12. Or The Denver Broncos, still no running back is gone, and the Denver Broncos love Caleb Johnson. They pick him at 20, and then Ashton Genty slides to somebody else in the 20s. Who's to say that, or even falls out of the first round, which would be completely asinine, right? But it could happen. I don't think it will happen, but that doesn't mean that it can't happen. And I'm just throwing the hypotheticals out there because absolutely nobody thought that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was going in the first round of that draft. So that's why I'm putting this into context for you. I don't want you to pump somebody like Caleb Johnson up too high. That's all. Now, next up, we're going to grab our second quarterback, and that will be Jackson Dart. Moved him up to the 110. I've already talked about Dart versus Sanders. Dart is just somebody that I love his leadership, and I think he's versatile in whatever system that he can go to. Though he's only played in the Lane Kiffin system, I think that his ability to get rid of the ball quickly and his draft season performance at the Senior Bowl, at the draft combine, those are things that matter to me. Now, if it doesn't matter to you, that's fine. Go ahead and pick Shedeur Sanders. They're very close. I'm splitting hairs here, honestly, and I just like, when it comes down to it, I like the fact that the community right now, nobody that I've heard is completely out on Jackson Dart. There's about, I don't know if I'd go as high as half the community, but it seems close. Half the community seems to be out on Shedeur Sanders and his attitude and just the whole Deion Sanders, blah, blah, blah. It's just public perception. And again, if both of these guys start out slow in the months of September and October, what are their values going to be at? I think that Dart will be valued more highly than Shedeur. So that's where I'm at on both of these guys. Now, they're quarterbacks, and so they're still going to carry value. All right. We all know, like, Zach Wilson still carried value while he was performing poorly. So you're still going to be able to get something for them, even if they perform not up to what we hope. Now, I'm taking Egbuka at pick 11. I like him slightly over Luther Burden. That could flip with landing spot. But I think Egbuka is pretty well entrenched into the back end of the first round, meaning that he'll go to a playoff team. So he'll probably get a good quarterback. He can play that power slot role. Most likely he's not going to go to a team unless he goes to like the Packers. Any of those other teams in the 20s already have a legitimate number one receiver for the most part. And so Egbuka will be able to go in and not be pressured into having to be the wide receiver one for whatever team. Luther Burden, on the other hand, he could go anywhere from the teens down to the beginning of the second round, and by doing so, he could end up on a lesser quality team, in the beginning of the second round, where he doesn't have as good a quarterback play. He is expected to be the team's number one, and therefore he gets higher coverage. So they're very close. I'm just going to lean Egbuka right now for the time being before we have that draft capital. Then at 12, I am still going to go Shedeur Sanders. He's going to get his opportunity to play probably right away, and that's something you cannot just dismiss 100%. Again, community's 50-50 on him. I am 50-50 on him. I want to see the landing spot and then see what he goes to the Jets, and I hate to do it, but what is the Jets' history with drafting quarterbacks? It's just not a situation I want to buy into. You get say the Jets take him at 7 and Dart goes to the Steelers at 21. I would prefer Dart. So that's just my take on it. All right, next up, we have Colston Loveland going here at the 201, and then Luther Burden at the 202. Now, again, I'll go back to my Patreon rankings and show you those. let me remind you, if you haven't already, hit the like and subscribe. We've got plenty of content coming up this week. Now, I've noticed I do need to switch the numbers here. As I said, I'm doing this on purpose. I want you to see how rankings can evolve, and you can't be afraid to adjust your rankings. Just because you had a feeling about certain guys at one point doesn't mean that you can't switch later on. All right, so I should have held up because this was the bottom end of that tier, and right now I'm going to show you. I'm taking Jalen Milroe here at the 203. I think Milroe's ability as a quarterback, rushing quarterback, supersedes the upside of Trey Harris. I love Trey Harris as well. I think he's going to get a good landing spot, probably at the beginning of the second round, potentially at the back end of the first, where he gets, again, just like Ibuka, gets a good quarterback. I mean, imagine Trey Harris catching bombs from Josh Allen, right? Trey Harris has the ability. I hate saying it just because he was at Ole Miss, but dude plays like A.J. Brown. And that is, there's no doubt in my mind he could end up having that potential where Trey Harris could be the best wide receiver out of this class. So following Milroe, I'm going to go with Trey Harris there. So I want to make the adjustments to my rankings and show you what I'm doing and then explain why. So again, here, I need to do it this way. Okay, I'll fix that later. But for right now, Jalen Milroe. Now, Milroe has been quite the polarizing quarterback. He's been up and down this draft season. Started off poorly with not throwing the ball well at the combine or at his pro day. But then we had him run a 4.37 40, and that excited scouts again. So, you know, that's why we're drafting Jalen Milroe, his upside, okay? And that's something I'm willing to take a shot on at the 204, 203, 205 range, because if I miss out, that's all it is. It's an early to mid second round pick. It's not an early first and not a late first, okay? Milroe's potential is similar to what you were drafting Michael Penix for last year. All right, so then we're going to keep the other receivers, Trey Harris, Matthew Golden, Jalen Noel, Alec Iomanor, Dylan Sampson, Devin Neal. Now, Devin Neal is where I'm going to make an adjustment and add in Bashul Tootin. I think that Tootin has enough hype that he should be taken on day 2 of the NFL draft. Now, he might fall, and we can make adjustments if we need to. But one of the latest mocks, I saw him going to Miami, okay? Now, Miami, of course, has Devon Achane there, and so that might not seem like a great landing spot, right? But you know what? Miami is exciting, and I think that if he goes there, that's not a terrible spot at all. So I'm going to adjust the numbers here quick before I get back to our draft board, so you can see how I've got these running backs ranked. Okay. So what I've got here is basically Milroe, then the group of wide receivers, Harris, Golden, Noel, and Iomanor, all guys who could go day 2 maybe in the first round when I'm talking Harris and Golden, but likely day 2. Golden probably has the most hype to go day 1. And then you have Noel and Aya Manor, who are likely to go day 2 right now, round 2 or 3. Then we've got this group of running backs right here. My favorite of the next cluster of about 11 running backs in Sampson, Tootin, Devin Neal, Scattaboo, and Damian Martinez. All guys I look at as guys who should go in the second or third round, but that doesn't mean they will. I mean, I've seen Devin Neal go in round 7. So, yeah, it's yet to be seen, but this is where I'm ranking them talent-wise. I see these guys as regular. They could be starting in the NFL out of the gate. All right. The next crop of running backs are guys who could be like your backups with good potential. So that's where I have these guys. So I'm going to fill in the board. Let's go back to the mock draft. And fill out our round 2 selections. So after Trey Harris, we're going to go Matthew Golden, then Jalen Noel, then Alec Ayamanor. Now, I'm not in love with Ayamanor. I just think that he could get a good situation. So that's why I've still got him at here. I think that it'd be very easy for one of these next 5 running backs that I'm going to slam up here on the board to pass him. Okay. And then I might be out on Ayamanor. So I don't know. He's just not somebody that excites me overwhelmingly. Same with Jaden Higgins. That's why I've got him down, and maybe I'll make that adjustment later. But for now, I've got Ayamanor right here. So then I want to nail down these running backs that I just showed you from my Patreon. I've got Dylan Sampson. It really doesn't matter what order I put them in. Again, they're all in the same tier for me. So I believe I had Sampson, Tootin, Devin Neal. Come on. There we go. Devin Neal, Scattaboo. There he is. And Damian Martinez. There we go. All right, so those are the first 2 rounds of our mock today. And that would be your most talented players, I think, in this 2025 class. These are the guys that can actually make a difference. You could throw a player or 2 yet in here. Jaden Higgins, maybe some of your other favorite running backs. I don't know. But that's where I'm at with these guys and where I'm at on my Patreon rankings for you. So then we're going to get into the 3rd round. And we don't have any quarterbacks quite yet. So we're going to put in, let me make sure I'm not missing someone. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to start with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Royals. All right. Now, I like Jalen Royals slightly over Higgins. It's a toss-up between the 2. Now, Higgins could move ahead of him based on draft capital. He has that taller body where somebody like, the Bills or whatever at the end of the 1st could jump on him. That's fine. If he does, I'll make that adjustment. So I'll put these 2 right here for now. Then I'll get back into the running backs. And we've got in this tier RJ Harvey, Ollie Gordon, Giddens. Where are the running backs? DJ Giddens, Jordan James, and let me double check. Shard Smith. And Rocket Sanders. Sanders, I know, is buried down here a little bit, which excites me for our upcoming rookie drafts, but now I'm giving that away, so maybe not as much anymore. All right, so there we have it. So I threw in the 2 wide receivers who could fluctuate possibly based on draft capital. Maybe they'll slide up and Aya Manor will come down. But for now, I just wanted to break up those running backs. This second tier, you have the top 5 running backs, then you have the second tier of like 11 running backs, and these are my 11. So Sampson, Tootin, Neal, Scattaboo, Damian Martinez, then it's broken up a little. Then you've got Harvey, Gordon, Giddens, James, Brashard Smith, and Rocket Sanders. You can move those around and pick whoever you want, honestly. Again, it'd be a situation where if I was at the 303 and somebody wanted to move up and had the 308, I'd be more than happy to drop down to the 308 and grab something on top of it. So somebody could have RJ Harvey and I get Rocket Sanders plus something. Okay. Now, when we get to the 309, this is where I don't want to forget about the tight ends in this draft class. So the tight ends, quickly before I get back to the quarterbacks, because I don't want to dwell on the tight ends. We're going to talk more about them tomorrow. But the tight ends in this class are very good as well. You've got Warren and Loveland up top, and then the second tier of tight ends that I see are very good. And so we don't want to forget about these guys because any of these 3 could definitely move up. And I'm talking Elijah Arroyo, Mason Taylor, and Harold Fannin here. So we're going to lock those guys in. Let me slide this down so you guys can see the board a little better. There we go. Oh, there. Okay. So we're going to lock in the tight ends, this cluster here. And I'm grouping them all together. That doesn't mean that I think they should all go back to back to back in your drafts. These guys all likely could go round 2 or 3. 1 or 2 of them maybe getting better quarterback situations, and then you want to slide them up more. Maybe one of them goes to Kansas City, say, and is looked at as the possible Travis Kelce replacement. Maybe one of them goes to Jacksonville in round 2, and you like them more than Brenton Strange. So those are good possible landing spots. We know, as my guest on Thursday, Shane, he did a little Shane Says on Dallas Goedert, and he's an Eagles fan, so he has a little more in-depth knowledge there. Not that he's talking to the Eagles brass every day, but if he thinks that the Eagles are a little down on Goddard, I mean, that's something that is out there. It's not just him saying that. It's out there. And so the Eagles may be looking at a tight end. Who knows? Point being, there's going to be good spots for tight ends and bad landing spots for tight ends. It's all on how the public perceives them. Right now, talent-wise, they're all very similar. Fannin's a little shorter, but had that amazing season, 1,500 yards at Bowling Green. Now, that's Bowling Green, but he did do well against Penn State and Texas A&M, so don't punish him on that. He is super athletic. He's great after the catch, great route runner. I mean, he does everything well. So, again, any of these 3 tight ends could get pumped up all the way into the second round of our rookie drafts, especially if it's like a 0.75 tight end premium or full point tight end premium. Then we're talking a different story. I'm just doing a 12 team Superflex tight end premium half point one here. So that's where I just have Arroyo, Mason Taylor, and Fannin for now. Next up, I want to talk about a little bit of the opportunity versus talent, and that's where we're getting back to the quarterback room. And so if we hop on over to Draft Buzz and check out their quarterback rankings so you can see a little prettier picture than just my Patreon rankings where I don't have pictures in there. But yeah, let's do it this way. Okay. So now we have those top three, and then we had Milrow. Now DraftBuzz has Quinn Ewers of all people ahead of them, and personally, I think that means they haven't done many updates recently because Quinn Ewers is just somebody that I am not buying into. But the guys I am buying into are in this next level here, and I'm going to start it off with Kyle McCord. He's my favorite of the backup quarterbacks, I would call them, the backup quarterback tier, and I've got to slide down a little for him. Kyle McCord was at Ohio State, and he was basically pushed out the door, but he went over to Syracuse and just lit it up. Like, he was slinging it 50 times a week, hit his tight end, Oronde Gadsden, who he quickly became his favorite target. And just look at the numbers there for McCord. McCord is a solid quarterback. He's the type of guy, like, think Nick Mullins, all right? Nick Mullins is a guy who's a great guy to have on the back end of your fantasy dynasty rosters. When he comes in, yeah, he may throw 3-4 interceptions, but he's also going to throw 2-3 touchdowns and 300 yards just about all the time when he plays. Now, can't remember where Mullins went now, but I don't think he's in Minnesota anymore. So he's not going to have that Kevin O'Connell system, but he's still going to sling it wherever he goes, just like Jameis Winston does. And so that's where I see Kyle McCord fitting in on a team in the NFL. Next up, we're going to continue on the backup quarterback path and take Will Howard, very solid prospect, your typical backup quarterback, more of a game manager type. He can run a little. So yeah, he's somebody that's worth grabbing. Tyler Shook, of course, Shane grabbed him in the back end of the second round of our mock draft last Thursday, which, you could question, but Shook has been mocked to some at the beginning of the second round. And if he does that, say he goes to Cleveland at the beginning of the second round, well, he's going to shoot up the boards, and that back end second might not look so bad anymore. And after him, we're going to go Dylan Gabriel, and then we've got one more backup quarterback that I think could be decent. That would be... Oh, yeah, it's simply Quinn Ewers. Okay. Don't love him, but somebody's going to take him, and that means that we need to at least consider him. Okay? I don't know how high or low Quinn Ewers is going to go. He just didn't look like somebody that presented more than being a third stringer. Think Stetson Bennett. Okay? So that's why I'm lowest on Quinn Ewers out of the bunch. Curtis Rourke is another guy to consider here, but in all reality, the guy tore his ACL before last season at Indiana, played through it, and I mean, it's quite amazing what he did there at Indiana with a torn ACL, but now the fact that he may have to sit the entire year, sort of like a redshirt season like Jordan Travis had, that's not something I want to waste a draft pick on. I mean, what's the point? So he sits on your taxi the whole season. Take somebody that has a shot to do something this year. Then if you really want Curtis Rourke, go ahead and flip a fourth rounder next offseason, because he's still going to be at that value. He's not going to do anything to pump himself up above that. So there's no reason to draft him this year. All right. Let's get back to the draft board and finish this mock out for you guys with some of the bottom end sleepers that I personally like. You may like somebody else, and that's fine at this point in the draft. I mean, it's really just pick your poison. I'll throw Jack Besh out there. Where is he? We'll go Isaiah Bond first, who obviously has had a rough off season. Jack Besh here. There we go. There's our boy Besh. Then I've got Jaden Blue and the two Jaden Blue ran a great 40 And so he got pumped up a little. Somebody like Kansas City to replace him in the Jerick McKinnon role could be something we see. Then I want to go Terrence Ferguson. Ferguson is one that could creep himself up into that Arroyo, Fannin, Mason Taylor tier, depending on his draft capital. For now, I've got him a little bit below just because he isn't as good of an athlete as those other three. So I'm going to keep Ferguson there for now, but he's somebody that could move up. Let's see, we'll go Woody Marks. He's got that unique one skill set in receiving. Donovan Edwards out of Michigan. I would go Edwards over Khalil Mullings, but they're both similar. And then to end things, we're going to finish it off with Taj Brooks. Taj Brooks actually has a 3-down skill set, so he could be somebody that's sneaky as a, like, let's say the Eagles take him, right? I think that Taj Brooks is more talented than a Will Shipley, okay? So put it that way. I saw the Niners take him, and Taj Brooks is probably a better all-around running back than Isaac Guerendo. Guerendo has that elite capability. Like, Guerendo, man, I watch him play, and it reminds me of David Johnson. Like, that dude could blow up. But if the Niners decide to just go with the steady Eddie, they could have Taj Brooks there to replace basically Jordan Mason in that role. It just depends which way the Niners brass would like to go in that regard. So there we have it. There's our newest mock draft for our mock draft Monday. It's been a lot of fun pumping these out. I've done them every week since the late January, so it's been a fun ride here. Now we have the NFL draft come, but that doesn't mean we are ending mock draft Monday altogether. Oh no, we are going to continue it after the draft. We'll have more context, obviously. I know we've done a few drafts with some context of mock drafts, then we've done a few drafts without it. There's no one way or the other that's better necessarily, but because when you do it without those contexts, then you get a better feel for the talent, and then you're not buying into the landing spot as much. Again, at the beginning of this, in the first round back then, I mentioned Brock Bowers last year, right? Everybody was hating on the landing spot with the Raiders because Michael Mayer was there already. Well, we saw that Brock Bowers was the generational talent that was talked about. And we're going to see the same thing with Tyler Warren and Colston Loveland. Not that they're generational, but that they do fit in that tier, so to speak, in Dynasty of somewhere between Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid is where I want to put them right now. So they're in the mix with the veterans of your George Kittle, Travis Kelce, somewhere in that area. So if you want to go young, go Warren or Loveland. If you want to go old with the sure thing of points, then you can grab Kittle or Kelce, like I said. But whether they're better than Sam Laporta or not, that's going to be landing spot dependent. And because Warren, as versatile as he is, he's not as good as Bowers as a prospect, but he's just a tier below. And Loveland as well. Loveland's been compared many times. I've seen Zach Ertz as a comp for him. So Zach Ertz, of course, still around doing things over there in Washington. And so he's been very productive for his career. If Colston Loveland ends up being Zach Ertz, that would be a steal for you at the 201. But again, we have no context yet. We will have that context come Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So very exciting things coming up the rest of this week in the Birdhouse. Again, we're going at it pretty much every single day. Tomorrow I'll be back with the emphasis on the tight end rankings. I'm not going to be doing a whole mock draft here, but we're going to talk tight ends, talk where they fit into the veteran rankings at the position, and then go at it as far as it's very league dependent with the tight end picks, whether you have no tight end premium versus half point versus 0.75 versus full point. And then you also have those start 2 tight end leagues. We're going to discuss those, where they fit in with the war. It's much easier using the war to describe things, a war graph, than trying to use just words into describing it. So I want to thank you all for joining today. It's been a fun ride on these Mock Draft Mondays before the NFL draft. So stay tuned for more from the Birdhouse. And remember, never stop working.